Hi, this is Billie Beene here with another segment of U.S. News by Billie, episode 42, today's date, August 1, 2023. Some of the things we'll cover. The U.S. military is fighting Chicoms. That's in California. A U.S. general was just killed this week in active combat role in Ukraine. Just say no to Fed now. In August, what changes are going to come for us? And it's about time, we say. Some of my sources are God in the Bible, Patriot subscribers, Judy Byington, Jim Willie, Benjamin Fulford, Dr. William Alt, WarZone, Epoch Times with Joshua Phillips, Burning Platform, Borzzikman, Israeli News Live, Redacted, Plus. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to begin with some information from my Patriot subscribers. I've had several from different parts of the U.S. who are saying that their plants are not dying, but they're not growing. That's been going on for several months. So this Patriot subscriber a couple of days ago said, my plants also are not growing. And they're located in North California. And I had one who said the same thing from Kansas. So, and I have another one from a different state. Plants are not growing. And she's giving a suggestion that Dr. William Alt had given out. I've seen it before where you mix like Dawn dish soap, a couple of drops, and some diatomaceous earth, excuse me, and Epsom salt. Or you can use fish fertilizer just to increase the amount of the water that's absorbed by the plant. And I have one Patriot subscriber. I believe there's a growing impact upon the planet, and that's increasing the magma in the earth and the temperatures. I would agree with that, yeah. And another Patriot subscriber who says, when I was a child, the sun was yellow. Now it's white. And what are they spraying in the skies to cause this? Yeah. I have a Patriot subscribers talking about the Club Rome, the WEF, some organizations of the deep state. And they're a death cult, and they want to use weapons on the oceans to kill the plankton, take down the oxygen in the oceans, and begin to kill when you have a food chain and you kill the bottom of the food chain, well, it affects everything going up. In this case, it'd be plankton, which are small organisms in the ocean, and small fish eat them, then larger fish, and so on up the line to, the real large fish. So, yeah. And my Patriot subscriber says, they need to be taken out. Yeah, the deep state, destroying the earth. Yep. I have a Patriot subscriber who's a techie who describes himself as a techie, who says there are 5G microwave transmitters, and the deep state can amplify the signal, and it makes the oceans boil. It's used as a weapon, and it can it works in humid climates, not as well in dry climates. And it makes the water molecules explode. And he's saying, deep state has a motto, order out of chaos. Yeah, they want to take over the world. I have another Patriot subscriber from Northeast Kansas who's talking about, she has a son and daughter in the U.S. military. The daughter is in the Air Force, and she just got back from Kuwait. And the son is in the Army, and he just got back from Romania. So they're both very happy to be home. And prayers she's asking prayers for all the sacrifice of our U.S. military, and understands that in Ukraine we have 350,000 dead, and 80,000 dead of U.S. military. I know, it's very sad. And what can we say about this government? No, that didn't ask the American people whether they wanted to send their sons and daughters. No, what's going on? We have a Patriot subscriber who's talking about Planet X and believes it's also associated with the impacting Earth and causing high temperatures. I have another Patriot subscriber who's outraged. I was too. That the so-called Congress sends billions of dollars to Ukraine, and they give each of our sons and daughters valiantly serving in the U.S. military a measly $225 a month more pay to be engaged in combat, putting their life on the line. Yeah, I was outraged by that too. That's a dysfunctional government for sure. When we the people regain control of our government, that's another thing. We need to be a peaceful nation, not engaged in combat, which the deep state just wants us engaged in combat because they make money off of the weapons, and they make money liberating the resources from whatever nation they have the U.S. military fighting in. Okay. Well, this is coming forth from Jim Willie. He's a PhD economist from Costa Rica. Christian, I've been listening to Jim for years. And Jim, also I had good information when I began researching in the early spring of 2020 as to Cliff High information about the COVID, bioweapon I figured out. So Jim has contacts from around the world. He writes a monthly economic newsletter, and apparently he's right up there with the great economists who can give you good information about what's going to happen. But he has contacts from around the world, and he gets information about other things. Now this is about, here we have, this is Mexico, California. So we've got this going on. This is California, Long Beach, California. We've been hearing about the port at Long Beach having so many container ships out here, and this is going on August. We've been hearing from months, maybe in the spring even, it began that Special Forces was going in and they were searching these container ships, and they were finding young humans. YouTube has certain algorithms. They were finding young humans. Well, now we have a full U.S. military combat operation going on here in Long Beach. And they have set up camp in Long Beach Port, and they are actively fighting in these tunnels underground, and they are fighting Chicoms, or what we would call CCP military, plus cartels. So we need to be in prayer for our U.S. military stationed in this area too. And what they are finding in these cargo ships, they are finding young humans, plus they are finding nukes. Now, Israeli News Live, Stephen Bannon, formerly with the CIA, now as a ministry, regularly gets updates from the Pentagon last year, put out a video showing these containers, and then the lid would lift, and then you would have this missile launcher come out. That's what the CCP has been shipping over in a lot of these containers. And so we have a ship, and it will have thousands of containers, and they are stacked up levels. Jim says they usually put the young humans down on the bottom levels, and by the time they get to California, most of them are dead from being dehydrated. They put the nukes on top. But our U.S. military is actively now. Is a letter being put out to increase the pay of our U.S. military who are actively engaged in combat in this area? Well, I don't know anything about it yet. So that's going on. And we've heard for years about Chicoms being in Mexico and coming up through the tunnels. So Jim Willie's contacts and military intel says, yes, this is happening. Now we have also this going on from a standpoint of economy. We have the BRICS nations with 86% of population and income on the world. We've got the G7 that includes the U.S. with 18%. We have the BRICS selling off the U.S. treasuries and impacting the banks in the U.S. And the so-called U.S. government, is trying to do this and that. Now we have this. So we also have a source, and this was something I looked into one of those occasions when a guide attracts me to certain things to look into. So this was a major general, U.S., Anthony Potts. And the story came out in the news that, I think that was Harbor de Grace, Maryland, had been a small single engine, one person on board, and one account says bird strike, another one says thunderstorm, but at any rate, they're saying he was killed. Now we have another source coming out. I'll link this for you. Borzzikman gives military information talking about Major General Anthony Potts was killed in an underground NATO bunker inside Ukraine. And that happened July 25, 23, along with 4 high-ranking Australian officers. And Borzzikman is putting this forth that when you begin to hear on the mainstream media in the U.S. a high-ranking military officer has been killed in this way or that, it would be good to peel that back and see if it didn't relate to Ukraine. Same as being said for Australia. As soon as these 4 high-ranking officers were also killed, the mainstream media came out and said they were all killed in a helicopter crash inside Australia. Okay. Now, General Potts, through the date from June 22 of 2022 through the date of his death, July 25, 2023, he was in charge of ground combat systems and command and control. And he had been also involved in the planning in the past for Desert Storm and another operation that had gone down in the last 20 years or so. So I'm sure he will be missed, but the point is he was actively engaged in combat position inside Ukraine. And now we have this. We also have some information from Benjamin Fulford, In my last video, I gave this information out. Benjamin Fulford is a Canadian journalist, 20 years with Forbes, currently lives in Japan, talking about a peace deal to come about for NATO in August in Malta, involving MI6, CIA, Mossad, and other intel organizations, militaries, and governments. Now, one of the provisions would be that NATO would maintain a permanent base inside Germany and maintain a permanent military of 300,000. A lot would be drawn from the U.S. We know that. So that's going on. Now, I want to tie these two items together. So we're seeing in California, we have the U.S. military taking down the cargo ships. And so traffic is going down. And this includes young humans and nukes. And now we had, that happened last Friday, which would be about July 29. We had 30,000 truckers laid off because we had a less than trailer load company go bankrupt, and that was Yellow Freight. It was based in the Northeast, and it also based in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and they filed for bankruptcy. They had 12,000 trucks. Some of their subsidiaries are YRC out of Kansas, also Redaway, Holland, and New Penn Trucking. I submit to you that with the U.S. military setting up a base in Long Beach, taking down the cargo ships, taking down also the Chicoms that are trying to come up into the U.S. and invade, along with the cartels, that there are many items that are not being shipped across the U.S. I think this is the first of many bankruptcies we may see in the shipping business going forward. So that's going on. And now we have this. So we have also from WarZone. Yeah. So on the Congress, which is not meeting in Washington, D.C., but most likely in Atlanta at a military base where they have cameras and say, oh, this is your Congress meeting. Information about UFOs, ETs are coming out. One person testifying, David Garush, he testified for 12 hours. And there's talk of a cover-up. Really? Yeah, the average American citizen knows about ETs going back to Roswell. I mean, there was a great book that came out by a military colonel, Corsi, I believe, who talked about getting items and devices and ships and spaceships and back engineering them. Yeah, Corsi. Now, and there was another high-level politician, and the Canadian military also did a check into Colonel Corsi's book, which came out 25, 30 years ago, and said, yes, this is true. All this is true. Okay, so we had that going on Wednesday, July 26th. And House Oversight Committee and the Congress supposedly is hearing this about non-humans coming to Earth. And there are non-human bodies in storage somewhere. Yeah. So that's going on. Yeah. And now we have this from Joshua Phillip with Epoch Times. Yep. Talking about, what's coming out about Hunter and JB. And this is coming out with the laptop scandal that the U.S. government is trying to weaponize the courts and put no more, even though the FBI had this information in 2020 and before about JB and Borzzikman energy in Ukraine, and the JB, who was VP, could withhold funds from Ukraine unless they gave a kickback to JB and to Hunter. Come on. And also the children of Nancy Pelosi and John Kerry and Mitt Romney. Hey, we're here to make money. Okay. So the U.S. government, according to this information from Joshua Phillip, has weaponized the court system, also the banking system. Okay. And now we have this from Burning Platform. Yeah. So the DOJ prosecutor, Jack Smith, so Department of Justice, this is at the federal level, wants to charge President Trump with being in possession of government documents, even though you are the elected president of the United States. So yeah, we have the deep state has weaponized the court system of the U.S., our banks, our government, our court system. Yeah, depends on how much money. Definitely our election system. Yeah, you don't think we're here because American citizens put us here. No, we just had a lot of money to pay the counters. That's how we got in. And that's the question about JB being impeached. Can an individual who was not put in place by the American people be impeached? That's the legal question. But either way, it's pretty soon. With all this information coming out on the mainstream media, you can look forward to JB being gone. Bye-bye. Okay, now we have this from Burning Platform. Okay, yeah. The U.S. Constitution holds no law, and no part of the Constitution making it legal to directly tax American citizens. So, that wasn't a problem to the U.S. government in the past. They just laid aside the Constitution, as they do now, and set up the IRS that's based on no law. There's no law giving authority to the IRS to collect taxes from American citizens. Yeah. But they do have a standing army now, about 100,000? All right, now we have this. We have IMF, the deep state, one of the deep state international banks, right up there with the UN and WHO and, global deep state. And the IMF, a deep state global bank, wants to push the U.S. after the election of 2024. And, do you seriously think we're going to have an election then? We'll see. But the IMF says, after the 2024 election, and we're going to put JB back, or a clone, or double, or actor. We want all the U.S. money in the U.S. banks to go to us. We're going to put in place a digital bank system, Fed Now, along with a social credit score. And you people who speak out against the government, you'll see, we'll take all your money and put you in jail. And we saw a recent example of this in Ukraine. There was Gonzalo Lira. He's an American Chile individual. This is his citizenship. He was recently, he lives in Ukraine. He has a family there. And he'd been broadcasting just what was going on inside Ukraine on YouTube. So the Zelensky government, the same government that shuts down churches, imprisons Orthodox Christian priests, say they are prisoners of law, confiscates all the money and land of the church, also said Gonzalo Lira is guilty. He's guilty of speaking. So they put him in jail, and they beat him, and they took all of his money, about $100,000. Now, for some reason, he was out, and this information is coming from Hal Turner, and also Gonzalo Lira put out several videos on some, I don't think YouTube, but he put them out on Telegraph, or some different areas. Okay, so he said he was going to have a trial next Wednesday, and he'd already been told by insiders, you're going to be found guilty, you're going to go to hard labor for 5 to 8 years. But for some reason, they had not put an ankle brace on him, or, to track him. And they did give him back his passport, and they gave him back his driver's license and some other documents. So he managed to get some kind of little scooter and drive it from Ukraine. And his plan was to go to Hungary to ask for asylum. Now, he said the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine, they had been called him 3 times and said, yeah, we're with you all the way, and made zero effort to do anything to help him. Much more likely, well, we really can't say, was all this help that apparently he is getting to aid him in escaping, did all that come from the Chile embassy, or did some of it come from the U.S.? We don't know, but we'll know in the future. But this is another example of the deep state who was in control of this shadow NATO military effort going on inside Ukraine. That shadow operation doesn't want speech, free speech. No. Don't think you, just because you claim to have a constitution, that we, the deep state, who are really in charge of your government, will let you speak. No. Well, I think God and the awake people of the U.S. are going to do a lot of pushback on that. Now we have this from Dr. William Mount. There was an occasion a U.S. bank, J.P. Morgan, is following suit from another bank inside the UK. That was Nigel Farage. They closed his bank account. And in the U.S., J.P. Morgan, for the Mercola family. And I used some of Dr. Mercola's products, like a vitamin C. I buy from Amazon. Mercola family, like natural remedies. So, yeah, they've been in business for decades, and certified, and have all their documents. And all that. Well, it doesn't matter because we've got that deep state now in charge of our banks. And so they closed the account of Dr. Mercola, his company, his CEO, his CFO, plus all of their family members. Yeah, we're the deep state. We're in charge of banks here. We'll tell you if you can have a bank account. How's that working for you? I think, yeah, they did get their money back in the form of a check. Now, Nigel Farage in the UK, this happened to him also. And he went to 10 other banks and they said, no, we're not opening. The deep state said no to Nigel Farage. We are weaponizing the banks in the UK and in the US. Hey, if the deep state says you don't get a bank account, well, that's the way it is. Say no to Fed now, for sure. Okay. And now we've got this. Yeah. All right, Redacted came out with this. So there's this global deep state group, Worldcoin. And they want everyone to get an eye scan. And they say they'll give you money. Well, Redacted did a good job of looking into that. And it really meant you get like one of their Bitcoins per month. And who knows what the value is. The value is unknown. That wasn't stated. For about 6 months. For giving up your eye scan. Now, the eye scan, I had an eye scan, I would say 25 years ago when I went to get my Texas driver's license renewed. And they said, oh, we're doing this, the state's doing this, and we want to take your eye scan. So that's been in the planning for a long time, hasn't it? So the plan by the deep state is you get an eye scan, and they say, oh, it's so we can tell your ID from an AI. And then we'll put all your money in this Worldcoin, and we'll control it. It's a digital system. Just say no to FedNow and any other digital system. No. Now this was coming out from Judy Byington. Some good news. And we say, praise the Lord for that. Jeez. We have U.S. military engaged in combat we don't know anything about inside the U.S. and inside Ukraine. We have a global banking system that wants to take, well, we have a court system that's been weaponized at the federal level. Lay aside the Constitution and all the laws, and it depends on how much money you have, whether we charge you, even a president, we'll charge him with looking at government documents. Hey. Yeah, well, let's have some good news. Okay, now this is going on. That the BRICS, as of July 30, had put in place a gold-backed currency system, and it was signed by 209 nations. So we know that doesn't include the G7, you know, like the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand. I think Japan is in there too. So yeah, that's going on. All right, now Japan is selling off their treasury, U.S. Treasury bonds. They've been doing that for several years. According to Jim Willie, they've sold off almost $250 billion. And for Japan, when they sell the U.S. Treasury, it takes down the value of their currency inside Japan. but they were committed several years ago to de-dollaring their income and getting away from using the US dollar. So that's going on. Now, we have this good news that the Space Force, which is part of the White Hats and President Trump, Chairman Xi, Prime Minister Modi of India, and many other nations. Okay. So the Space Force has taken down, according to Judy Byington, HAARP and CERN, and they have captured all the nuclear weapons, and that's one of the U.S. military operation going on in Long Beach, California, is part of the White Hats, and they have taken that down. Now, a benchmark, this is a benchmark. We had several, like 34 buildings would come down all over the earth when the Alliance had made all their arrests, rescued all their children, and also they have rescued millions of young humans, and they have them all, according to the information Judy Byington has, out of the tunnels. And that's also part of the process that the U.S. military is doing now in Long Beach, California, and those tunnels going on into Mexico. So that's going on. So one of the benchmarks is going to be the Three Gorges Dam will go down. Now, I had information that might have come from Hal Turner's site, that when this dam goes down, that would leave 100 million people vulnerable to flooding. So we know, and I reported yesterday, that China had told the people along the Three Gorges Dam to evacuate. So that's going on. Now, also according to this, BRICS, bringing in the gold-backed currency, signed by 209 nations on July 30, is that trillions of dollars of U.S. Treasury bonds are going back to Europe and 110 nations. So that's going on. And now we have this. So we know that also part of this return of President Trump and JB Alt, and okay, will be Nasara Jassara, and that is going forward, and that, yeah, JB is going to be charged. Now we know it's an extra puppet, but they're going to have a charge in a court against JB for bribe, treason. Yep. So that's going on. And also determine legally whether or not they can legally say that the JB entity actor was, could be impeached because he wasn't elected. So, yeah, a legal question has to be determined. Okay, Nasara Jassara is set as this taking down of JB and his cabinet in August. President Trump back in August. Nasara Jassara in August. That means people on Social Security or disability will have their payments go up to $5,000 per month at a minimum. Yep. And so, and Judy Byington's information is that banks may try to change your account to FedNow. Now, you have control over that. Say No to Fed now. So we see August looks bright. So, and that correlates to the WebBot data from Cliff High. So yeah, it looks good. Here's a short prayer. This is based on World War II weather prayer by General Patton, used by General Patton. Father, grant us good weather for battle. Guide us from victory to victory. And we ask, crush, vaporize, and identify our enemies, both domestic and foreign, for America and for all nations around the earth whose peoples simply want peace and prosperity. And we say, God bless America. We thank you, God the Father, God the Son, Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, and God the Holy Spirit. I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there. Continue to pray. It's good to remember God is in charge and He is on the move. I love you, and I'll see you soon.